And welcome to Connected Conversations for Creatives, a place where creatives like you can learn, grow, and connect. I'm your host, Jennifer Carr. Imagine the vast landscape of human imagination as a canvas waiting to be painted with stories. And then every genre of book represents a unique palette, a distinct set of colors and brushes that an author can use to create masterpieces. While it might seem overwhelming at first, once that first canvas is transformed from blank to artistically expressive, the artist begins to develop skills that can then be transferred to the next canvas that can then be filled to resonate with a completely different audience. Rather than creating formulaic art for a singular audience to enjoy, authors can expand their abilities and readership when they aren't afraid to diversify their genres. Being an author who writes multiple genres is not just about versatility, it's about personal growth, creativity, and the potential to leave a broad and lasting mark on the literary world. While this journey may require effort and adaptation, the benefits far outweigh the challenges, making it a voyage of self-discovery and artistic fulfillment. Today's guest is a multi-genre author who recently published a poetic memoir and a children's book and is working on her first contemporary fiction novel. Wendy Haller is here to talk to us about her work while also offering up tips and suggestions for building an audience as a multi-genre author. We'll also cover the different publishing avenues available to authors, as well as just the multiple medias authors can choose to utilize. So without further delay, I'd like to welcome Wendy to the show.
That was so beautiful.
Thank you.
Describe writing for, yes, the artistic avenues of exploring different genres. That's so beautiful because it doesn't limit the creativity,
Yes,
and I'm
absolutely.
And I don't know if it's just like the way my mind works or for certain people's work, but yeah, like the ideas come differently.
I am the same way. And I'm really looking forward to talking about that because it is one of those things that I feel like I have all these stories to tell, but then I feel like I'm also kind of like pigeonholed into a box because my first two books were a certain genre, but then I'm like, but I want to branch out and write more. I have more stories that I need to get off my chest. So I'm really excited about jumping into that. But before that, just kind of tell us about you and how you became an author.
Sure. I actually graduated with my bachelor's in journalism, but then I worked for 7 years in sports broadcast in the graphics, and I traveled a lot and all that. And I kind of got away from the writing area of, because I worked at our school newspaper and all this, did the poetry journal at my college. I went to University of Rhode Island. And then I had kids and realized that traveling for work just wasn't cohesive to having a family. So that's when I went into teaching, and I've been a school teacher for 19 years. And that was kind of like, how you just have different passions. And that was always my other passion. I always worked with kids. I was a nanny, I was a camp counselor, all the things. And when we're younger, and it was so fulfilling. And I got my creativity outlet through my teaching and my lesson planning and those teachable moments and coming up with just different ways to work with the kids and read. And I got to read so many, I love books and children's picture books. And, I did so much with that with my students through the years. And I worked in special education for a majority of the time, in preschool special education. And so picture books are just like, my collection is ridiculous, but I just love them all. They all hold a special part for me. And unfortunately, last January, I was taken out of work because of, for medical reasons. I have psoriatic arthritis and autoimmune diseases, including celiac. And so I was taken out of work because I'm immune compromised with the medication they put me on. And I was at such a high risk working with the demographic of kids that I have. So I ended up staying home, which was very weird. And I went through like big time guilt, where I was like, oh my God, like, who am I? I'm a teacher. What do you do? I'm a teacher. Like that had defined me for 19 years. And then it was like, well, what do I do now with this time? And I had always written poetry, but it was more for me. And I had made a promise to my son when he went away to college that I would write. He's like, I want you to write, promise me you'll write. And finally, I got over myself being sad about, my physical limitations as well as not working. And I sat down one day and I pulled from my notes app and all the millions of journals that I have like 3 pages written in. You know how we collect journals, we like start
Yes.
and finish. And it's like, oh, I'm going to take up journaling, and it's like 3 pages in. I'm like, yeah, I'm all done with this one. But look, this one's pretty. I'll buy this one and maybe this one.
That's what I was going to say. It's pretty. I got this one.
Look, it's got a really encouraging affirmation on the cover. It's going to make me want to pick it up. Yeah. But anyway, so I gathered all my poems in from like my late teens up until now, which I'm 50. And as I was like putting them together and piecing them together, I realized I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like my diary. Like this is my life story and my journey from who, when we're in our late teens, early 20s, like who am I? What do I want to do with the rest of my life? Where do I fit into this world? Because we're raised with our parents' ideas or religion, beliefs, whatever it may be. And it's like, oh, I can decide now what. And so, and the same thing, you go off to college, it's like, this is what you're going to do. What are you going to do the rest of your life? Hi, 18-year-old. What do you want to do for the next 60 years or whatever? And it's crazy. Which is so funny because I actually changed my major like 3 times, and I had started in education and then somehow ended up in journalism, and I ended up I'm kind of doing both. I'm like going backwards. I got my master's in early childhood special education, did that for 19 years, and now I'm writing. So I'm kind of going backwards with my degrees. Things work out the way they do.
That's right.
So anyway, so I started putting it together, and I realized that it really was my journey from who am I, where do I fit in this world, which was a big journey for me in my 20s, like what's my place in this world, to now where I'm 50 and I'm like, this is me, this is who I am. I've evolved into, I'm not whatever other people's expectations. That's on you. That's you. That's not about me. That's about you. But I think we all go through these journeys, right?
Oh, absolutely. That is one of those things that it is resounding so heavily with me because I'm 40 this year. Next month I will hit 40, and it has taken me these 40 years to figure out who I want to be.
Yeah.
Right. Like not even who I am, but just who I want to be and who I want to work toward becoming. And so, yeah, maybe by the time I'm 50, I will have figured it out, because that sounds very promising. And that's not that far away.
But, and it's so funny you say that, because I remember when I was 38 and I went to get my master's, and I was like, oh, I'm 38 and I finally know what I want to do when I grow up. It's like, but it's just part of growth and growing and evolving. And that's in my poetry book. The last poem is called I Evolved, because I feel like I've evolved into the person that I want to be today. Yeah. And we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And I don't know what the next 30 years, and maybe 30 years from now, I'll take all the poems I've written from then. And I actually started my next poetry book. And it's called Ache. And it's just all the things that make you feel that ache. And ache can be joint pain, which I've experienced a lot of, but it can also be that ache when you finally find that person that's your person, or ache for like a newborn baby, or ache for a parent who, like, I'm in that sandwich situation where my parents are older now and I'm starting to become the parent. So there's so many areas, but I haven't honed in right now. I'm just like letting that word speak to me and seeing it in different areas and asking friends, when you hear that word, what does it mean to you? What does it make you feel? Or what does it make you think of? And kind of just taking it all in. So we'll see. Got to trust the journey. We'll see where it goes.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that is so just enlightening too, to look back over the years, to be like, you know what, as much as I want to say that I have figured out who I want to be, I was exactly who I was supposed to be 10 years ago too, right? Yeah. So technically the journey took me exactly to where I was supposed to be. Otherwise I wouldn't have made it here. And so I can imagine looking back over all those years of poetry and work and just going, yeah, that was a good ride,
Yeah. Like you have to trust the process. But you don't know it in the when you're young. Oh my gosh, I read some of the poems from when I was in my early 20s and I'm like, oh my gosh, you poor child. But that was me at that time, and I'm like, oh, you poor thing, or I'll be embarrassed. And it's interesting because when I had I self-published the poetry book. And when I had self-published it, it went up on Amazon. And, when it finally went live, and I texted it to my brother and my sister-in-law that it was there, and I hadn't put it out publicly because it's so vulnerable.
Personal.
It's so vulnerable. It's very different from my kid's book. Because these are my inner thoughts, my inner secrets. This is like, so personal. And my brother posted it on Facebook. I'm so proud of my sister, who the published author, with the link to it, and tagged me. And I was like, and of course my sister-in-law got super mad and was like, take it down, take it down. I'm like, you know what? It's okay. He ripped the Band-Aid off. It's out there now. Like, and it was like, that's what was supposed to happen. And then I was like, okay, I'm allowing this to just, happen. And like, we talk about like, let things happen organically. And I'm glad that he did it, because I don't know how long it would have taken me to make that public.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's we want our work out there, but it is even a fiction novel. It's part of you. You're pouring yourself into this, and then you put it out there for other people to potentially criticize. But how do you know that it's not going to speak to somebody just as much as it speaks against somebody? They're like, oh, I don't like this, but somebody else could be like, this is life-changing for me. So you do, but it is scary. It's very scary.
Yeah, especially when you're a first time like author in this way, and you're like, imposter syndrome, like, am I really an author? Like, I had to I kept pulling myself up on Amazon going, wait, that's my name. That's my name. That's my name. Oh, wait, is that yeah, that's me. It's very strange. It's very strange, especially when it's been like we all have those hidden dreams. Like, oh, like I've had so many people come up to me and say, oh, I've always thought of writing a book, or I've always wanted to write a book, or whatever. And if I hadn't made that promise to my son, I don't know when it would have happened. But it was that shove, and it just the timing was there, and I think we all have that something that we want to pursue, that it's like sometimes we need someone just to give us that little, just go do it, just do it. Yeah.
Because they believe in you. And sometimes it takes somebody else believing in you too, saying, I think I can do this. And somebody else saying, I know you can do this. That can can make all the difference. Yeah.
And then that's the thing. Fear holds us back so much from doing so many things, and getting over what's that acronym? Fear, face everything and rise. Face everything and rise. And isn't that like, and I think as we get older, we can like see that and be like, okay, get over yourself, go do it,
Yes. And, sometimes I wonder, thinking about when I was growing up, am I instilling in my own kid? She's 14. And so like, am I instilling in my own kid, the bravery that she needs, the courage that maybe I didn't have when I was her age to make these different choices? Am I learning enough from my past to push forward and be like, no, let me tell you what you can do, because I see your potential and I know what you can do. Let me show you how to take the first step. I don't know. It terrifies me sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, especially at 14, because I have a 17-year-old daughter, and it's like, girls are mean to each other. Like, so I'm like trying, right? They're horrible. And it's like, okay, I'm going to try and instill in you the things that I should have said to those mean girls. So you can stand up and say like, no, I'm not doing that. Or no, you may not speak to me that way. But it's so hard, because it's like, you just want to keep them in a bubble so they don't have to go through,
Yes. And at the same time though, like how you can only for so many things have head knowledge until you can put it into action. Not that you want somebody to be mean to them, but without practice, things don't happen. And so what if, down the road, there's an even meaner girl and they're like, well, I know what I should say, but I don't know how to do that. So
yeah, exactly. You just want to give them the confidence in themselves to be able to be like, no, you may not treat me that way.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so you went from writing poetry to a children's book. Like, that's kind of a jump.
And it's so funny, when I was pulling out all my old poetry, I found a children's book that I wrote for my children's lit class in college. And the basis of it was good, but it wasn't relevant to today. And having, being a teacher for so long, preschool teacher, it's amazing what the mind will do in the middle of the night when you wake up. And I ended up had that kind of sparked this character, Maggie Malone. I actually have her right here. Here's Maggie.
She's cute.
She's the cutest. I brought her to my author event yesterday with her little stuffies. So the character was in my forefront of my mind, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and in my notes app in my phone, I wrote Maggie Malone in her imagination, and it came out of, with us coming out of the pandemic. As a preschool teacher, you get the kids in their early years coming into school. So a lot of, with the special education, I work with students in my class. I have that, half the class is reg ed, half the class is special ed. So there's like a mentoring, and it goes both ways. And what I noticed is that the children, we call them our COVID babies, coming out of the pandemic, they didn't know how to play. Like, kids have really lost how to play, and we had seen it prior to a degree, but then after COVID, it was like, and I get it. We were all home. There's a lot of hours in the day to fill, and it's like, here's my phone, go play. I have work to do. You know what I mean? And so we had kids coming in, they could swipe and they could do this, but there were a lot of skills they were lacking. And we saw a lot of kids with fine motor, like they couldn't hold a crayon and scissors or Play-Doh and, certain things. But then just imagine just being a kid. We just saw kids with a lot of anxiety because they never left their house, or they only went to grandma's or the babysitter. But I had a lot of kids coming in, they'd go to the play kitchen and they would just dump. They just take the stuff out of the fridge and they just dump it on the floor. And then they take this, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're not doing this. Like, no, we're not gonna do this. And it really occurred to me, I'm like, they just don't know how to play. And I'm like, we need to bring it back to basics. Let's teach them how to parallel play. Let's teach them how to independent. And these are the stages of play: parallel play, independent play, cooperative play. And so it was really building those skills. So with Maggie Malone, here it is, in her imagination, in the book, Mom sees Maggie dumping her toys, and it occurs to Mom, oh, I don't think she knows how to use her imagination. She doesn't know how to play. And so Maggie's mom says, let's have a pizza party. Let's play. And she's like, no, I want my tablet. I want tablet, and it's really, and it is easy. I get it. It's easy just to be like, here, fine, I have things to do. But in the book, the purpose of the book is to help parents see how to model that play, and then for kids to see how to play with their toys. And then in the end, Maggie's playing independently by herself in her play kitchen with her stuffed animals. So it's funny because I wrote it at like 3 a.m. on my phone app. Yeah, on my notes app on my phone. And it's just an experience I had in my classroom. And the next one that's coming out is Maggie Malone. I can do it myself, Mama. I can do it myself. And it's about self-help skills, where Maggie sees her peers in her classroom taking off their rain boots and putting their sneakers on by themselves, and like taking their coats off and putting their coats on. And, she has to ask the teacher, or opening her snack bags. I had so many students that just didn't even know how to open a Ziploc. And again, I understand it's easier. Here, come here, sit down. Let me put your shoes on. We got to go. But in the end, I've had this conversation a million times over with parents and parent-teacher conferences, that your life will be easier if you let them do things on their own. Go put your shoes on. I'm going to put mine on. And these are skills that they need before they get to kindergarten. And I used to joke around with my students. I'd be like, I didn't get a master's in education to tie shoes all day, like just joking around. But this is part of what we do. We teach them to be independent little people to be successful members of a classroom environment. And there are a lot of skills that were lacking coming out of the pandemic.
Oh, yeah. No
So
doubt.
yeah, so that's why the first one is about imagination, because that was resonating with me at the time. And then the next one is about self-help skills, you
I
know?
love that. And if I could offer up a third one,
Yes.
social skills and being able
Yeah.
to talk to grown-ups safely and other children, because I think with the technology, I love that they are able to do it, but at the same time, like we have taken that face-to-face communication away. Like we
Oh,
have taken
without a
that
doubt.
ability to, oh my gosh, I can't stand it. I can't stand it.
Yeah. Well, and also just make eye contact. Look someone in the eye.
Yes.
Like just, you know, and look at me. You're talking to me. Look at me. I'm right here.
Yes.
Now, I understand there are cultures that's not a culturally accepted thing, and that's fine. And I understand there are children with disability or different abilities that
Right.
it's hard to make eye contact. But even just face your body toward me, or just to have a conversation, even if your eyes are gazing down, you know, what do you want? I want snack. Great, let's go get you a snack, you know, something
Yes, it's like just
simple.
verbalizing
Yeah.
what you need, and
Instead of the pulling, you know, or
gosh, yes, yes, like that's just something that I've noticed. I teach at church on Wednesday nights. I teach second, third, and fourth graders, and
Mhm.
several of them they go to private school, and it's very different. But the ones who are in the public school or homeschooled, and our kid is homeschooled, but social skills, because she's an only child, we have like really pushed the whole,
Yeah,
you can't be there are some stereotypes that we are trying to avoid,
yeah,
but like those public school and even some of the homeschooled kids, I'm just like, I'm right here and you can
yeah.
talk to me. We're not just going to walk out of the classroom, for one thing. There's just a whole, communication is not a thing that we understand. And so that's just a thought.
No, it's true. And it's interesting you say that, because I actually, for the third book, I thought in my head, I had this little girl. Oh my gosh, she was such a little sassy. I love the sassy ones. Um, and she was sitting, we were sitting at circle, and she was sitting, and this little boy who was just super antsy, and he's doing his thing, and he ended up tipping over onto her, and she lifted him up, and she goes, "You say sorry to me." And he got so embarrassed because he didn't mean it, obviously. And she goes, "Mrs. Haller, he fell on me and he didn't say sorry. He needs to say sorry to me. That's not okay." And he just completely shut down. And I'm like, well, you know, and I said, it was an accident. He didn't mean it. And I'm like, and I'm like, you know what? It is those things. Like, how do we
Yeah.
handle these situations that are uncomfortable, and how can we address it to where it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, whatever the conversation is, but to have those conversations, like even my kids now that they're older, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to a friend's house." "What friend?" "Oh, you know, like," yeah, just like, I need, tell me what's going on. Talk to
Yes.
me. Talk to me,
Yes.
you know, be like, "Oh, my friends and I are," "What friends?" Like, I want to know the names of these people. I want more information, you know, everything's a bridge, like, you know, like LOL, and, you know, what is it? Be right back. BRB. Like, no,
BRB.
how are you going to be right back? Okay, I'm running upstairs. I'll be right back. Okay, it doesn't, you know, it's not that hard to like have a full sentence. We're having a conversation. We're not texting each other.
Also, God forbid you don't tell them something because you don't tell them something, but no, they don't have to give you all the details. But if you
I
don't
know,
tell them all the details, oh
I
my
know,
goodness.
I know, exactly. Well, that was even in the car driving here today to make it in time. Um, for us to talk. My daughter's like, "Well, you never told me that." I'm like, "Yeah, I did. You just didn't listen." But you know,
Mm,
I'm used to being ignored, but okay. You know, she's like, "No, you didn't. You didn't tell me. You never said anything about a podcast." I'm like, "Yeah, I did, but okay, you're right. I didn't. Okay. But now you know, so let's move on."
oh my, yes, that's a whole nother ball game. The whole, I was listening, but I wasn't really listening. Like, just in
Yeah.
case, one more time.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. All right,
Oh
let's
my
go
gosh.
over this again, you know. But I feel like a lot of the kids' books, or at least with the Maggie series, a lot of the stuff are things that the reason why for jumping genres, I think is just like, this is my experience as a teacher.
Yeah.
These are what I've noticed. Also as a parent, and as a parent, I will at some point write one about siblings. Just the different generation, like fostering friendships between siblings. My parents, and God, I love them. Just when they watch this, I love them. But it wasn't what they did. They didn't foster a friendship between my brother and I. It was boys do this, girls do that. And that, like you were saying with your daughter, for me, I really worked very hard at fostering a friendship between my son and my daughter, because in the end, when we're no longer here and they're going to have each other, and they have a beautiful friendship, and I love that. And I just think it's important to help them through the stages of like siblings to friends, and that kind of
Yes.
relying on each other.
For sure. My sister is 21 months younger than I am. So like, we were besties from the time that she was born. It was like we were always together. We always did all the same things. We did, eventually our paths diverged, but for the most part, and even still, like she's my editor now. Like, and
I love that.
I do too. And let me tell you, like it was a risk. It was a risk because you don't really think, who I can take this criticism from my sister, but at the same time, she's the only one that I trust to, one, give me exactly what I'm looking for and be the most blunt and honest person out there, but to do it with grace and love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was just, I've been in a writer's workshop right now, and that was a conversation we had this past week about, having your ARC readers versus your beta readers, and just having those first readers that you trust to be like, what, this is crap. Or I really like this, but I think that your point of view is skewed, or whatever, just that bluntness. So it's, and one of my favorite things to say is like, I always say, I say this with love, and, because you're right, it comes from a place of love, and she's looking out for you. She knows you can do your best. She knows that this is something like a different angle that you're not seeing, or perspective, or whatever it may be, or we miss things. I was rereading the first 2 chapters of my current novel I'm working on, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I called the kid the wrong name twice in this like section. I'm like, that's not Grayson, that's Britta. Like, and sometimes, like having someone call you out. I mean, I just happen to call myself out on it, but sometimes you need that other person.
Oh, for sure. And
I don't need you to pet me and be like, it's beautiful, it's amazing. We need honesty to do our best.
100%. Absolutely. Well, and that's, yes, that's exactly what they're for, and that's even if they're not your sister or your brother, like your editor can be your best friend, like, maybe not like legitimately your best friend, but they can make or break your book. And so that is one thing that I always say the loudest. I'm like, if you're going to write a book, I don't care what you spend your money. You could have you could hand draw your cover. I don't care. Invest in an editor, a good editor.
Yeah. Well, I do have to say that editor for my poetry book is also a published poet, and she was amazing. And she held my hand, and like she had a lot of grace with me. And she also, because some of these poems I wrote when I was so young, she was very honest about, this is pretty adolescent, or go to your thesaurus. Like, I think this could be reworded differently. And at the same time, there's a poem in the book. I wrote 2 poems, one from the perspective of a mother who lost a baby at birth, because I experienced someone in my family that had a stillborn. And then the poem next to it is coming from the point of the person that wants to comfort. I'm sitting at the table with my coffee and my cell phone wanting to comfort you, and she wanted me to change some of that. And because that was such a tough time of dealing with that, I'm like, I can't, and it was actually my husband that was like, and that's okay. Like, you are the writer, and that's okay. And isn't it interesting? Sometimes it just takes someone to give you permission. to be like, it's okay to not, it's okay to, like even my writing coach in this workshop that I'm now with my current novel, she's like, it's okay to write your scenes out of order. And I was like, it is? Oh, okay. She's like,
I hope so.
I know. And she's like, because I'm using the save the cat. So I'm in the process of outlining so I can get ready for NaNoWriMo, but I have like 35,000 words already written. And so, but then I was like, I'm kind of going off track a little bit, but I'm definitely a pantser when it comes to my poetry because it's when I'm inspired. The children's book, because situation or memories or whatever, those just came to me. Both of the stories came in the middle of the night on my notes app. They just did. I don't know why. Maybe that's when I write children's book in the middle of the night on my notes app. But I realized when I got to writing the novel that I knew the beginning, the middle, and the end. So I had the bones of it and I had all these scenes, but I was getting too hard on myself. Like all of a sudden the oldest sister is speaking to me and I'm telling her story and she's like, knock it off. I'm not this book. Like, stop giving me away. Like, I'm the next one. Stop telling my story. So then I realized like, okay, I need to stop, take a step back. I need to plot this out. I really need to plot. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And it was so funny that in our coaching session, she like gave me permission to be like, stop, like, it's okay to like stop and plot it out. It's okay to write out of order because scenes come to me and I'm like, oh, this would be great for when they have this confrontation at the end, or this would be great with her, that defining moment when she realizes that this isn't working out for her anymore. And so I'm like, how funny it is that like, why can't we do that for ourselves? Like, I'm like, okay, thank you. Okay, now I'll go and do that because that's what I really wanted to do.
It is funny. And I love that your characters speak to you like that because mine do too. They're like, hey, over here, like pay attention to me, or, I get in my own way and I'm like, I push you to the side, but my characters are constantly the ones that I'm dealing with and not just the story. So anybody who's listening, who's never tried to write a book before, they're probably like, wow, these people are nuts, but it's true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
I mean, totally. It's what it is.
The voices in your head. Well, that's what my character.
Like, yes.
Yeah. My character, the oldest sister, Becca, is like, yeah, she was talking to me and she's like, you're giving away my story. You need to stop. Like, enough is enough already. And then Claire, who's the main character of this book, the youngest sister, she's like, come back to me. You're telling my story. What's happening? Wait, come back. I have more to say. I'm like, okay. So she's like, I'm the one with the dilemma here. I'm like, okay. That's why I'm like, okay, now I need to plot this out to make sure that I get, because now my brain is off on the second one. Right. And then, and again, my coach is like, she's like, well, you can write 2 at once. I'm like, oh no, I can't. I got to start. This is my first novel. I'm already overwhelmed with the idea of writing long form. I got to get this under my belt because there's something about that. And I don't know if you felt this, or other people have felt this, I'm sure, but to feel like a legit author, like I'm an author, there's something about like the novel. I got to write a novel, like I've published 2 books. I'm on my 3rd and I'm like, but the novel, I don't know. It's so weird.
I never set out to be an author. I literally had a story that it was a dream that I had and I wanted to finish it. I wanted to know how it ended. And so I started writing because I was like, oh, this is a good story. I wanted to see how it ended. And all of a sudden there was a book. And so I never really set out to like say, oh, I'm going to be an author. It was, I got to like chapter 4 worth of material and went, I think I'm just going to turn it into a book and see what happens. Like, I don't know. It was so bizarre. But I ran with it. And now, my 3rd book comes out in February, and then I've got like 3 more already in my brain, just kind of working their way out. And so, yeah, I think that if you have a story to tell, it just needs to come out. But let's talk about that switch. Like, tell us about your novel, but also like, what's it about?
Well, and it's interesting you say that. And because I didn't intend, I never, like, yes, maybe it was something in the back of my head that I always wanted to do and never thought it would come to fruition, or thought it was like a pipe dream, or I don't know. I'm trusting, I'm going to keep saying, I'm trusting
Yep.
the journey. I don't know what's happening right now. I'm just going to embrace it and let it happen organically. Like the poetry book, it still might have been on Amazon, and I may never have told everybody or anybody if it wasn't for my brother. And the children's book came about with a publisher. This is actually kind of a funny story. So I wrote a query letter to different independent publishing companies. The publisher that reached out to me, the one publisher that reached out to me, I had written that I was in the query that I was a 19-year teacher, and kind of went from there. He thought I was 19 years old. So he was like, we're having our Zoom call, but it was a phone call. We didn't have a Zoom because there was no face-to-face. It was a phone call. And he was like, I'm just so impressed with you being so young and here I'm thinking, he thinks 50 is young. Fantastic. But he's like being so young and having this all together, like it's really great. And because I had it all set up by pages and everything ready to go. And I was like, well, I've been a teacher for 19 years. And he was like, oh. And then it clicked. He's like, I thought you were 19 years old. And I was like, oh, no. And he's like, no, I still want you though. And I'm like, well, good, because you're going to get me. I'm like,
You're stuck with me now.
Yeah, exactly. We're here now. And now he's doing the second one. But it is interesting that a lot of this has happened very surprisingly how it's come together, very organically. I did not understand and know anything. Like I thought I'd write a book and publish it and done. Oh no, there's so much. It's the marketing, the business is very, very, very different. It's very different from doing a self-published to a publish or with a publishing company. And now with the contemporary fiction, I'm really not sure what avenue I'm going to go with. I might self-publish because I do like, I'm not a control freak, but I like having a little more control. What did you do? What are your books?
Self-published.
They are.
And
okay.
It had everything to do with the control aspect of it.
Okay.
Like I had a say in everything. And obviously I'm going to find the people that I need to help me do things, and is there a little more legwork? I don't know. Maybe I don't know what traditional publishing looks like for it, but I do know that my story is not that different from a lot of the traditional published authors that I've talked to. They're like, oh no, I still have to do marketing and I still have to do this, that, and the other.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I agree. That's why I'm like, I'm feeling drawn more to the self-publishing. When you look up Maggie Malone's book and her imagination on Amazon, it comes up as a children's activity book. There are no activities in this book unless you consider encouraging it. Well, that's, and it's like, but with my poetry book, I was able to put the keywords and the categories, and I can change them, and I can choose where in the world I do a marketing strategy. And, there are just certain things that it is nice. Like, I can't even tell you how Maggie's selling. I have no idea, and that's when you put so much of your heart and yourself into your work, it's really hard to just hope they do right by you.
Yeah, and that was the other thing, I wanted the final say. Now, there are options like hybrid publishing. I've got a really great resource for hybrid publishing. He's a fantastic guy, really bright. He offers all the benefits of traditional publishing with the same control aspect as self-publishing. Like the author gets the last word and everything, and they just have wider avenues to help you travel that. And so there's something for everybody, if you need the extra help, because they do cover design, they do editing, they do all of these things. You don't have to go and a la carte your services. And so that's a plus. But I also like to be able to say, No, I'm going to use my sister. She's going to be my editor because we work
Yeah.
so well together. And my cover designer, I'm going to work with her because I met her and she does fantastic work, so I guess it depends on your
It
desire
really
for
does.
that last say. Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, like with the children's book, I didn't understand or know how to go about the illustration part of it.
Mhm.
And with Mirror Publishing, I really liked their illustrators. And my my editor was just like, go on, look at all of the illustrators. They're all freelancers, see if there's anyone that speaks to you, and then we can reach out, and then they'll do a mock-up so I found one, and I knew kind of going in because I had already kind of scoped out the illustrators and the books that they had done work for Mirror Publishing. And so I kind of already knew who I wanted. And then I sent him, I have to show you because I'm just like, I'm in love. So again, my daughter's 17. I sent him a picture of my daughter when she was 3 years old and said, this is Maggie. And this is my daughter at 3 years old. That is. So I was like, he gave me my baby back, and it was so cute when this book came in, or the draft of it, and my daughter took it out of my hands and she started looking, and I go, and so I'm filming it because I'm dorky like that. And I said, what are you looking at? What are you reading? And she goes, it's my book. It's about me. And I'm like, she's 17, and I was like, oh my God, that's my, So that was the connection. But again, I knew nothing about illustration. I knew nothing. And there's like all these dimensions for the pages. And I'm like, okay, I feel better letting a publishing company that specializes in children's books do this. But I think for the fiction, the women's fiction, I think I would feel more comfortable like you going through the avenue of, this is my editor, this is my book, just, cover designer. And what's interesting is, I talk about giving permission. I had come up with a title and I had an idea in my head of what I wanted for this book. And then the story is not what I thought it was going to be. It just, yeah. So the title of a story at some point, or maybe a poem, will be Till In-Laws Do Us Part. And I fell in love with that. And originally my whole goal was, and you'll understand, you're married, children, child, of my husband was raised this way, I was raised this way, we're coming together as a married couple. How are we going to have our marriage? How are we going to raise our kids? And then everybody's got an opinion, my parents, his parents, all this stuff. So we had to figure it out. We all have to figure it out. We have to figure out how we're going to raise our family, how we're going to grow together, all these things, evolving everything. And so I'm like, I really feel like this just speaks to so many people of, we have to figure out this life on our own, and we can take bits and pieces, but we really have to figure this out. And so that Till In-Laws Do Us Part was started out as this young couple trying to figure out their journey and how they're going to create their family together. And then, but they're also financially struggling because they're a young couple, young kids. That's what we do when we're young couples with kids, and we're trying to figure out, how we make ends meet, how we pay the bills, and in the story, the husband Patrick is offered a promotion that will give him the raise that'll get them in a financial stable position, but he has to travel Monday through Friday for work, which means now Claire is basically a single mom. So the idea I had was that all of a sudden the family would have ideas of how she's going to go about doing this. And then it all of a sudden, as I'm writing, this whole family dynamic between her and her two older sisters and her mom came into play. And it completely took a whole different way. And I'm like, oh, this isn't really about Claire and Patrick's relationship. this is about her, Claire, and how, like, it's the theme of it is neglected love, and how she felt as the baby of the family that I'm just the tag along, and now here she's left to fend with her and her 3 kids, that she doesn't want to rely on her sisters, and she doesn't want to ask for help because she's so used to having to do things on her own that she's going to do it on her own, until she realizes this is freaking hard and I need help. And it's mending these relationships between she and her sisters, and the perspective of the fact that, like, her older sister Becca's perspective was, well, I was always the oldest, so I had to take care of everybody. Well, I was always the youngest, and I was always like, fend for yourself. And it's just interesting how we see things, how everyone sees things, their perspective of things. And then at some point in your life, going back to your journey, you just gotta let it go. You gotta make amends with the past. And you just gotta have those grown-up relationships, have those tough conversations, which they will have to do, and realize, okay, if we're gonna move on and have a grown-up relationship, we need to have this tough conversation, and we need to figure out how we're going to be adult siblings, adult friends, and that kind of, so it's interesting. And so the other thing that's interesting is that on top of it, Claire has 3 kids. She grew up with 3 siblings, and her 3 children are also following in the path of her and her sisters, and she doesn't realize it until it's pointed out to her, and she's like, oh, I guess I am kind of doing that to my own kids. And that happens, it's just
it happens.
They repeat.
They do. And you know what? Another thing, like, birth order matters too. Like, it is
yeah.
a legit thing, that birth order. Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, but it was interesting because it was like, it was during my coaching session, and I'm like, but I love my title so much. And my coach was like, you need to let it go. You just need to let it go. She's like, it might be for a story for another time. And I'm like, or I'll write a poem. She's like, or I'll write a poem, but let it go. The title can be it's going to be
great title. No, it's a great title, because let me tell you, that is something. Oh yeah, it's good, because I watched my mom. I didn't understand it until I had in-laws, but I watched my mom, like, her in-laws were not people that I would ever want as in-laws. Well, just it was a rough situation, like, to the point where, like, I may have visited my grandparents like 3 or 4 times in my life before they passed away, because that relationship was so bad, like, to the point where when they first got married, they would bring up my dad's ex-girlfriend from college, kind of thing. It was stuff like that. It was just like, ooh. And so my mom was always like, it's yeah, like, I can't imagine. And so my mom would always say, and bless her heart, like, I know what she meant when she would say it, but she was like, just marry a guy who doesn't have parents, basically. She was like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it to risk having bad in-laws. And so, but I have been now, I think every in-law situation, it's very rare to come out and say, we got along beautifully from the beginning. Like, that has not always been the case. And we all had to get to know each other. But I've been married into the family for 20 years. I've known them for 30. It's like, we've been around each other long enough that we finally get along.
Yeah. Well, that's again, it's one of those things where, when you marry into a family, either husband, wife, whatever, you have to, like, learn your relationship and develop these relationships. And how are we? Yeah. Like, my parents absolutely adore my husband, and I think it's amazing and great. And, I'm very lucky. And at the same time, he calls them by their first name, where my in-laws were like, we're mom and dad. And I'm like, well, that has a meaning to me.
Yes.
I have a mom and dad, so it's like, I feel like his relationship with my parents is different because it's like adults. Oh, we're grown-ups. You're Bob and Betty. I'm Mike. And we share family members together, where it's like, all right, you're taking on this role. You want to be mom and dad. Well, I don't know. There was something different about it for me. I don't know. There was just something about taking on that. And I know my mom went through that too, because my dad is originally from Kansas City, Kansas, but my mom's from Rhode Island, and they raised us in Rhode Island. And so she only saw my grandparents every so often when we would go out there, and they were mom and dad to her, but they were just the mom and dad to everybody. They were just such loving people. But I also don't think because she lived so far away, she had to form that kind of relationship. It's like, yeah, I'm going to show up and we're going to love each other. And okay, goodbye. I'll see you in, 4 years or whatever. I don't know. It's different. I think everyone has those different dynamics that they have to, figure out. That's why I said in-laws do us hard. I need to figure. Yeah. So
that could totally be a rom-com too, like where mom is
yeah.
constantly meddling and they're like, let's get out of that,
Yeah.
No, I can see it happening. But it's a great title, so definitely don't lose it.
Well, I don't want to. And it's interesting because in this book, which now I don't have a title for, so it's hard, but in this story, Patrick's mom is very passive aggressive. So her comments are very passive aggressive. And so I was trying to build off of that. And now I see that, okay, this is not that story, and that story will come, but it's not now. Not saying it's not going to be part of the series at some point, but it's not there now. So
sure.
it'll go there. But it is interesting, like you were saying, like these things come to your head, and it's like, I didn't set out to be an author. And now, like, once that creativity starts flowing, like I've got a notebook of all different ideas, and I'm like the works in progress. And it's like, okay, can I just go in a cabin in the woods by a lake and just
yeah, for about a week. I bet I could bump out some, I don't know, I might find myself being like, oh wait, I feel guilty for being here for so long. But because then the mom guilt kicks in, you're like, oh, I should be taking care of something. But yeah, like, so which genre do you like writing most? Where do you find your happy place the most?
Probably in poetry. Yeah, I get inspired by things, everything. And like going for a walk with the dog, or listening to music and hearing a lyric, or someone said something like hot garbage the other day. I was like, hot garbage, I gotta write that down. Like, I'm gonna use that somewhere. And then there was another one that, like, things like that, like things will come up and someone, like a combination of words, and I'm like, I gotta write this. I actually have a poem that is just all different combination of words that stuck to me, and I just rearranged them. And I'm like, oh, this is really neat. Like, I didn't expect that. But yeah, I think poetry has just always been something that has spoken to me and has been an outlet for me. I'm very intimidated by long form. I'm very intimidated about the novel. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's
It
very
is a little bit.
scary.
It's a lot. It's a lot of words. I mean,
Yeah.
especially when you're trying to tie things together and not leave stuff out. Yeah, no, it can be very intimidating for sure.
Well, and then I'm like, even getting to, because I did Camp NaNoWriMo in July, and even getting to 35,000 words, and I was going to do 50, but I was like, but now I just want to be at the end. Like, I'm so used to short form that I'm like, now I just want to be at the end. I don't want to write the rest of the words. I know what they are going to be. I know the ideas. Can't they just pop out of my head onto the paper?
That is so legitimate. That is such a legitimate feeling. Like, yes.
Oh, like, I want the characters to just like come out, and like, just write it yourselves. Go, you know what you want to say.
I can see it perfectly. Like, it plays like a movie in my head. And so why can't the words just go through, like, just to our fingertips? But they don't.
I know. Well, that's why I finally was like, okay, I gotta plot this out, because I know the scenes. I just gotta put them all out, because then I figure if I get the outline done, then I can just plug it all in and stop being so in my own way.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what do you think after, you've written poetry, you've written a children's book, you're working on a novel. At what point do you think that, like, how are you going to measure your success as an author?
I don't know that I know that yet. I don't know. Because this right now is just something that just, I don't want to say dream come true. That sounds so corny, but it's just something that's been in me and is finally starting to come out. I think I'm still in the exploration phase of it, and the marketing part is so foreign to me. Like, even doing my author event yesterday, I would say like a half hour before the doors were due to open, I wanted to call my husband and say, come in the back door and help me get out of here. Yeah, I'm like, I'm in the wrong place. I'm not supposed to be here. There were 50 authors. Like I'm like, I don't, what am I doing here? Looking at like all these amazing creatives in this room. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. And then the doors open and one of my good friends walks through the door and I was like, you're here, like familiar face, come save me, but I'm not sure that I know yet what would measure success.
I don't
Maybe,
either. I don't either.
right? I mean, is it like walking into a place and seeing someone reading your book and being like, oh, that's mine? Like you're reading that?
Um,
Or is it getting into a Barnes and Noble and like walking by and seeing your book? I don't, or is it lucrative? Like, is there a certain dollar amount? I remember one of an author friend of mine saying that she has a friend that writes books. She's very successful. And she's like, I just want to write books so that I can. She's a very successful author. She's good at her craft. She said her books aren't amazing, but she said she had wanted to stay home, be a mom, write books to make enough money to send her kids to college. And she accomplished that.
nice.
And I'm like, good for you. That's
Mhm.
awesome. That's what you want. I don't know. I don't know that I know what I want out of this yet. Do you
Yeah, I
like,
don't either. I really
yeah.
don't. I don't know. I love when people read the books and they come back and they're like, that spoke to me, or I had this connection here. Like that makes me feel great. That's amazing. That's why I
Yeah.
wrote it. I wrote it because there was a story to tell, and I knew that I would hoped, I guess, that somebody would connect with it in some personal way. For like in my second book, one of the characters, he's in the first book as well. He talks about his brother has committed suicide, and his brother's name was Michael, and it was just he was a veteran, and he just had some struggles that he had to work through. And so in my second book, they named their baby, the couple at the end, they named their baby Michael after his brother. And I had this woman message me, and she goes, that's why I named my son Michael, because my brother
Um,
killed himself. And I didn't know
yeah,
her, but she was like,
yeah,
I
yeah. It just
made this
happened.
connection. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
was like, maybe, hopefully that spoke to her in some way, but she was just like, she made that connection. And I thought, if people are connecting with my words, then I guess I feel successful. I feel accomplished. I feel like I've
Yeah.
done something that I set out to do. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I love that. And I also like to add on to that, like to have someone connect to your words, especially words that have been so meaningful and you put so much of your time, your love, all of the things into, to also have a book where someone would say, I enjoyed this so much, I couldn't put it down.
Mm,
To have like the story you're telling be so captivating, even if it's for one person, would be just really nice. Like, okay, so that way, like, okay, so my world that I built sucked you in and brought you in, and you fell in love with the characters as much as I fell in love with the characters. And, that kind of thing would be just amazing. I think that would
yeah.
be amazing, and maybe right now, maybe that is my goal. And, I just, as far as like moving forward, I really just want things to happen organically.
Yeah.
Like when I first published the poetry book, my sales were great. Most of them were family and friends. Fantastic. Thank you for the help. It was more like,
Yes.
I'm putting this out there. This is my heart. I'm being vulnerable, putting myself out there. The children's book, again, it's gone through a publishing company. I don't really know, to be honest with you, how it's doing, because it's so newly published. I haven't, like, the royalties I haven't received or whatever, but it's out there and I love her and it's my baby. My baby's on the cover. That's, um, so I don't really know, but I want it to happen organically. I don't want to have to be like, I've been doing social media. I'm trying to get, and maybe you have some advice. I've been trying to get more comfortable about the the TikTok, or like doing all that. But I don't have it in me to, I get sick of me. I get sick of myself. I get sick of seeing me. I'm like, I'm sick of my own voice. But I just want to put my work out there, and I hope it, like you said, I hope it speaks to someone. I hope it
Yeah.
resonates. I write blogs
Yes.
on my author page, And it's always like, I'm not doing it. I was like, I'll write a weekly blog and I'm going to set myself up with these habits. And like every Monday I write a haiku because I find haikus hysterical and fun to write. So it just so happens that it's on Mondays now because that's when I publish them. But I already wrote my haiku for tomorrow's Monday. Yeah. For Monday,
Yeah.
wrote my haiku because it just came to me. But I've just been posting my author page on Mondays, but I do want things to be more organically. And if it becomes, I don't know, but what do I want to say? If it brings in extra income for my family, well, that's amazing. I'm not working right now. I'm home, I'm out on medical leave right now. Fantastic. And if it doesn't, then, I'm just doing something I'm passionate about.
Yeah. And I think that is something that a lot of people can't even say. They can't say that I am doing something that I love to do. They do it because it pays the bills. They're doing it because they don't know what else they can do. They don't feel like they're qualified to do anything else. And so I think that's a sense of accomplishment in and of itself to say, I love what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be honest with you, as a teacher for so long, and I am out on medical leave this year, but I never wanted to be one of those teachers that my colleagues would look at and be like, oh my God, you need to retire now. Like losing patience with their students, losing passion for teaching, for the craft of teaching. And I mean, I'll be totally honest with you, Jennifer, the last few years were hard for
I can
teachers.
imagine.
It was hard. And the year before, I wouldn't say I was burnt out from the job. I was just burnt out. I was burnt out. And I'm sure that contributed to a lot of psoriatic arthritis runs in my family. And so it's hereditary. And I did have COVID twice. And my rheumatologist did say it probably was accelerated from the COVID. And, but I also think it was my body saying, you need to stop. And yeah, this is your break. And so I think timing wise, it was meant to be, and I'm trusting the universe and what it has planned. I'm a yogi. I'm totally woo woo. And I'm trusting the universe, and this is meant to be because I feel like I was burnt out. And I knew, and I've said it since the first day I started teaching, that I did not want to be a teacher that everyone looked at and said, oh my God, you need to retire. Because it's not fair to the kids. If you can't be, and I knew that, and that was one of the things with deciding to not go back this year, because I didn't know what was going to happen because I'm so immune compromised. And I want continuity. I want the consistency for my students, and I want them to have, especially my special ed kids, and I'm like, we need to do what's best for them. And I think a lot of education has been taken away from, are we doing what's best for our kids? If I have to hear them one more time, it's not in the budget, or budget, or we don't have the money for that to hire the teachers or whatever, I'm going to lose my mind. Because I'm like, we have to do what's best for the kids. So we don't have the building space, so double up the classroom or whatever. Well, if so-and-so can make this much money, he can take a pay cut so we can put an extra classroom. I don't know. I don't have to go into that, but
I'm with you.
Yeah, I was really having a hard time with where education was going and servicing our students, but I was also having a hard time with, because those are my babies. Those are my kids. Doesn't matter who comes in the door and who leaves and when, they will always be my students. They will always be my kids. And if I can't give 100% of my students, then I shouldn't be there.
That is the sign of a good teacher, when the kids come first. That is a sign of a good teacher. And I hate it for them that you're not there with them. But at the same time, if you can't give your 100%, then you're not doing it in their best interest. And so that is also, kudos to you.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you. And that was the thing. I was debating about it. And now where I'm at, I'm like, you know what? I know this is where I'm meant to be, because this is what's supposed to happen right now in my life. And my kids are in good hands. They have the long-term sub that's in the room for me. She's fantastic and she loves them. I want to say probably as much as I do, but I don't know. They're my babies. Because I have kids that loop, 3 to 4, they end up going on. And but I was getting disheartened by the education system, not to get too political, but I'm really disheartened at where it is right now. And maybe that is another sign that it's okay that I'm stepping back, you know.
Absolutely. And you have to take care of you. Otherwise you can't be effective anywhere. You have to
Yeah.
take care of you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing. It took someone to give me permission to do that, to say, oh, okay. Like it took my doctors and my superintendent. They were both like, take this year, take the leave of absence. And I'm like, okay. And now I'm like, oh, that was the right choice. Thanks, guys. I know.
So kind of them, and good for you for listening though, because even sometimes still when we give permission or get permission, or even give ourselves permission, like sometimes we ignore that permission and we're like, nah, I can push through, it's fine. And then what good is it at the end? So
Yeah. And I think that's what ends up happening is we do push ourselves too far, and we do push ourselves until we're physically, mentally, all, drained. And then it's like, okay, how do I get myself out of this? And I'm fortunate that I can be home. I have a very supportive husband. But it's we all have to figure out our way and how to make it happen and stuff. But you're right. It's just it's so hard. I think especially, I'm sorry to dance, but I think moms, we always put ourselves last.
yeah,
Our kids, we always put ourselves last.
we do. And I'm not going to say it's the good moms that do that. Sometimes sometimes it makes me a pretty bad mom when I put myself last, because then I'm working myself to the point where there's nothing left of me to give, and so then they get nothing from me. So
well, that was, I do have to say, with that first year when we came out of the pandemic, and we were still wearing masks and we had all the shields and all the stuff, and I was coming home and I was so exhausted. And we were teaching hybrid. I had some kids on the computer, and some in person. I had nothing left to give my family. And I kept saying, this is not okay. This is not okay. And I'm on the other side now, and you're only a few years away from that, where, I had only a few years. My son was, oh gosh, was it his senior year or junior year of high school? Junior year, senior year, senior year. And my daughter was 8th grade, and I'm like, I only have so much time before they're not here anymore. And I got nothing to give them. Like, they were like, oh, even talking about their day, I'd come home and I'm like, I just need to rest my eyes for 20 minutes, or I'm exhausted. I don't even have the energy to cook dinner. Like, here, what do we have? Can we just have soup for dinner? How about cereal? Like, I was like, and that's when, I think that's when, as moms, we're like, okay, putting myself last is not in the best interest of everybody.
absolutely. And your work, like if you have passions or hobbies like writing, it will suffer. Like it will be very evident. You won't have anything to give to it, because writing is one of those passions that requires you to kind of cut yourself and bleed onto the page sometimes. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And when you're so drained, it's like you have nothing. Like, I'm like, I can't even feel what I'm feeling. Never mind give to someone else's, like a character's feelings,
That is so real. That is
Yeah.
so real.
Well, and it's so funny. So during that time, I'm just gonna flip real quick. I found myself, It's a Job and a Life is one of my poems. It's a job quitting. Like, all of a sudden, transcendence. I was writing poems about, like, it's a job and a life. It's not my life. I'm writing like, quitting is a kindness given every day. Like, I'm writing these poems, and then I go back and read it, and I'm like, oh, I was really talking to myself.
Your subconscious was like, let me tell you something.
I know. Well, one of them is this. It's called "I'm Not My Disease," to talk about, like, I'm more than just this. And I'm like, wow, yeah, my subconscious was probably trying to say, hey, wake up. I'm trying to tell you. Quietly quitting became such a popular term, and it's like, I want to quietly quit. How do I do that? Can I just like slowly back away?
Yeah, how does that even work? I don't know. I can't imagine. I've yet to quietly quit a job, but I've been my own boss. So it's kind of
so, but what's interesting is going from working full time to now, like you said, like I'm my own boss. I'm so used to being on like the school calendar year. Okay, September, what am I doing? I'm off to work. And it's like creating, and I mean, any advice, because you have to kind of create a routine for yourself. You have to create those work habits. And it's
Oh,
challenging when
absolutely.
you're not used to it.
It is. And it's one of those things, like I have a planner that is literally sitting right here next to me. I have a calendar up here on the wall right in front of me. And I have my notebook of to-do things that, for the future that I'm like, I need to go back and reevaluate every day what I'm doing and see if I'm working towards these goals. And so like, it is literally, you have to just get a little retentive about some stuff, especially because I write and I podcast. And then I've got, church and family commitments too.
Yeah.
And so, there's a matter of, you do have to, once you've set that schedule, you stick to it, depending on how much, you want to commit to any one thing. Now, October is different because I'm doing 1 to 2 podcast interviews a day, but that's all of October. Come November, I can sit back and I edit the podcast and I do the teasers and I do all the smaller jobs. And so October's is an exception to a lot of my stuff because it's a little crazy, a little more anal about my schedule in October. But you just have to be intentional, I think, is the key word for that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I have an idea in my head of how I want to establish that intentionality. And I think that it's just bringing it to fruition and not letting the external life things come in and be like, okay, but I could go, because I teach yoga as well. I teach 2 yoga classes and I had to take a break from teaching. And now I'm back to teaching a couple of classes a week. And I get so much out of my practice that I'm like, okay, I need to do this for me when I'm not leading a class. And then because I feel so good, and then go into my writing. But then it's like, oh, but I have a doctor's appointment this day, and then I got to do this, and then I have to, and it's like, okay, you do almost have to, like you said, be a little rigid about it and intentional to say, okay, I'm not scheduling anything during this time, and this is my time for writing, for editing, for that creative whatever. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And like August was the same. I had August and October set aside. And so September, that's when my book was off with beta readers. That's when I had time to sit back and take me time. So you do also have to schedule that in and be like, these are my boundaries. Yeah. You have boundaries that you say, again, thank you for your interest in my time, but right now it's mine. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Boundaries are not selfish.
Yeah, no, and you're like, my husband gets home from work at 6:30, between 6:30 and 7. And I have worked really hard since September, because I'm used to being on a school calendar year, to make sure, like, I'm not teaching any yoga classes at night after, like, I want that time with my husband and my daughter. Like, that is so important because she's a senior in high school and she's going to college next year. Like, I feel like my time with my family unit is so limited, the family unit in the house. My son's already off to college. So I'm like, I just want to treasure these, like, family dinner and, talk about your day. And, that's just so important to me. If I was working full time, I probably would be too tired and I'd be like, okay, here's, dinner's on the stove, just, grab a plate, because that would be we're rushing here, there, and everywhere. But now I'm like, I'm really finding, like you said, taking time to make the intentional choice to be like, you know what, after 6:30, I'm home and I'm spending it with them.
Oh, and I love that because that is something that it's rare. It's not in every household, and they're not even trying to make it a priority. But I think family time is so important because that time is fleeting, and you're not guaranteed, how long it's going to last. And that's just, it gives you this mentality, this attitude of just being grateful, just being able to be in the moment even.
Yeah.
And I think that impacts everything you do, just that attitude of gratitude, as we like to call it around here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just living in a place of gratitude is huge. Just absolutely huge.
Is.
And it's in even like this summer when my son was home from college and I was here, even if they're coming and going and they both had full-time or jobs, they were both camp counselors, and I'm here. They knew I was here. I'm here. You need to text, you need to call, you want to sit, you want to hang out, we'll do our dinner, whatever. I'm here. And just being present, because it is so fleeting, that it's like, I just need that. I need that.
Yeah.
Even if they
And
don't,
they do though. They do.
they may not say it, but yeah.
That's right. Because that's what they're going to look back on, because you're not always going to be there. I'm not always going to be here, right? Like mortality is a thing, and not that we don't want to dwell on that, but we want to leave that legacy and that impact, that when they do look back, that they're not going, ooh, it's a good thing you don't have a mother-in-law. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
you don't want that.
Yeah. That's so funny.
That was silly. I'm sorry. I just backtracked to the in-laws. But
I know, I love that. That was great. That was good. All right. So
let's flip the script. It's your turn. You take it. Whatever you want to talk about. We can talk about writing, or we can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Okay. This is what I want to talk about. This has been resonating with me. Actually, I don't know. So in here, I have one little fish left. Two have passed. So Goldie and Little passed. Unfortunately, it was their time. There are 3 goldfish. The one that's remaining is Fishtifer. My son named him Fishtifer. And he is literally this itty bitty thing. And I keep saying, so I still go over, I say good morning to Fishtifer. And I'm like, oh my goodness, Fishtifer, you're a little fish in a big pond. And so, so here's my thing. So then I wrote, because this has been resonating with me, little fish in a big pond. Yesterday, I'm at this author's event that I almost tried to sneak out of. I'm a little fish in a big pond because this is new to me. So I wrote this haiku based on it, and I dedicated it to Fishtifer. It's little fish, big pond. Don't let them swallow you up. There's a place for you. So being where you are, doing what you're doing, did you have that little fish in a big pond? How, went with it, with the writing and with the podcast, and obviously podcasting has become a huge pond. So tell me how you processed it. Yeah. Talk about your process and how it affected you and what your thoughts are.
That's a good question. And I love the lead up into it. That's so special. And that's precious. So, and I do still feel like a very little fish, but I have decided, because I have talked to so many amazing creatives, like I have talked to just the podcast alone, the writing. And it's really funny because I'm getting ahead of myself. Today at lunch, my husband was like, do you see a difference? Do you see the progress you've made as an author, as a writer, and as the business side of authoring and the marketing side of, do you see the progress you've made? And I said, not really, like until somebody comes up to me and says, oh, that was so different. Your book 1 to book 2, that was a big change or anything like that. Like, no, I just write. And, I think there was a change in editor. And so I accredit it to, we're working better together because I have a better team that surrounds me for stuff. And he was like, no, I think that you have just grown in your experience. And granted, I haven't been doing this that long. Okay. So like my first book turns 1 this month. And so like, it's not even like I've been doing this forever. I took the year before to write the book. And so I feel like I've been in the world a lot longer. And so, but I took it as, when I started making those connections with people, I decided it didn't matter how big of a fish I was or how small of a fish I was still making ripples, right? Because I've talked to all these people, I've made all these connections, I've made all of these networking, moments where I can now, like the woman who did I just updated my book covers. That was my 1-year birthday present to my book. I did my original book covers. They were okay, but I was like, 1 year you're getting a facelift, because I'm very proud of the success that they've had. It hadn't been a lot, but I'm proud of the success that they've had. And so the lady who did the book covers is somebody that I talked to season 1 of the podcast, because we just made this connection and I was like, I love your work, let's work together. The entertainment lawyer that I talked to in season 1, we've had some really great conversations, and the ability for me to connect her with people. And it's been all of these little things that made me go, my pond is my pond, and I'm making friends with all these other little fishies. And so now we have our community of fish. Now we may all look a lot different from one another. We are not the same.
Yeah. You're
I
not all goldfish.
that's
You're
right. And
yeah.
how boring would that be? Because that's
Oh,
why
absolutely.
we write different genres. I
Yeah.
write 4 different genres on my own. We don't want to be the same fishies, but we can
Yeah.
all share the pond and we can make it a happy little place together. So that's my mindset on it, is that yeah, I still feel like a small fish when I start looking at book talk. Oh my gosh, like don't even
Oh,
get me started, because I don't fit in there exactly. But I
mm,
have found my people, and we're going to just make our own little tribe, and we're just going to all stay together. And
exactly. And that's, I think I have found with the writers community, especially being a newbie, because it's only been since last January that I started this journey publicly, I guess you could say. But the writing community has been, everyone's so welcoming and so supportive, and giving guidance and support and advice and connections, and it's beautiful. It doesn't feel competitive. It really doesn't. And maybe it's just, we have lucked out. I hope that's not true, but it really hasn't. And I love how you said the ripple effect. Oh, and that's where I talk about, I want my books to flow organically. And if they're successful, fantastic. And if they reach those few that they touch the heart of, fantastic. But that ripple, yeah, like that is
yeah, and
amazing.
don't go trying to swim in somebody else's pond either. That, if you want to keep the analogy going, because
Yeah,
that happens a lot too in this whole, because we do compare ourselves, right? We do like to
yeah,
we like to play that comparison game, which leads to the imposter syndrome that says, hey, I don't belong here. That's because it's not your pond.
yeah,
And so, stay, not that you have to limit yourself, because ponds are, they're kind of limited, but your
mhm,
ocean, whatever it is,
yeah,
you
whatever.
mind
Yeah,
yours. Yeah, you stay in
yeah,
your body of water and make that your home, and make that
yeah,
where, because there are some who are out there who don't have your best interest at heart, and they do see it as a competition, and they will. But that's life, right? There's always
yeah.
going to be somebody out there who's not there to support you.
Yeah. And also, and I don't know if you had this happen, but since I'm new to TikTok and I'm not very comfortable videotaping myself. Hey guys, this is Wendy, But I've had a few scammers reach out to be like, oh, I'm an author too. What genre do you watch? Oh, I've got a great marketing person. Hey, Wendy, hello, are you there? Are you there? Like, I've got this great marketing person. Did you contact him? And I'm like, are these people getting kickbacks from this? Or are they the actual person wanting, like, what is their game in this? And it's like, I'm like, that's not the energy
Yeah.
I want. I don't want that
Yes.
energy in my world. If I just want to put
Yes.
out, raise the vibration, put out good positive energy. I'm like, I appreciate you contacting me, but I'm good. Thank you. I'm not there yet. And that's how I'll try and be kind and be like, oh, I'm just not there yet, or
Yeah.
whatever. And, I've had one that was a little aggressive and went from TikTok to Instagram hounding me. And I'm like, and we're done. Blah, blah, blah,
Yep.
peace out. And the other one just kind of gave up, you know? So
Oh yeah, no, they're for
it
real. Like, oh, they're
yeah,
terrible, because they want you to pay them to read your book and review it. Like, that's what the most of
yeah,
them that I get. They're like, oh, I'd love to
yeah,
review your book, and I'm like, well, let me tell you where you can find it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they're like, well,
yeah.
and I'm going,
Yeah.
you're not going to get my money because I want yours.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so funny. Yeah, well, that's on my author's page. You can contact me through my author email, and I've gotten quite a number of those. Like, oh, I would happily review your book for you, or I'd read it and put an Amazon review. And I'm like, yeah, I don't need it that much. But thank you.
Let me tell you where you can read it. It's on Amazon, Kindle
Yeah.
Unlimited, and
Yeah. And if you
you want a
want to
signed
leave a
copy?
review, yeah. If you want to leave a review, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, I know. But
Yeah, it's so gross.
it is. And it just like, I don't know. It's just all this scammer, like, just be nice, just be nice, you know?
Yes.
But
And I
yes,
am with you. I'm with you on the social media thing. Like, TikTok is one of those that you have to be constant and you have to be engaging and you have to be, pull people in that way. But it's fun if you let it be fun. And it's not something that I have mastered by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm starting to see it pick up just in the last, 2 or 3 months, because I've kind of changed it to where I want people to see me and not just me as an author. Like, they get to see me. I tell stories about, my crazy kid and some stuff that she's done or whatever. And people want to connect. Like, that's just human nature. They want to connect. And so that's what you have to do. You have to be your authentic self, and you just have to be out there and be like, I don't care what people think about me, because not everybody's going to like me, and that's okay.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that's part of the whole like evolving, where you get to the point where you're just like, this is me.
I can believe it.
That's it, and if you want to leave a weird comment, knock yourself out. To be honest with you, having been a teacher for 19 years, I have dealt with kids, parents, whatever, all of that. I have such thick skin. I remember I had a parent tell me or say to me one time, well, you don't understand. You don't have children. And I go, yeah, I do. And she's like, oh, well, I'm like, okay, so your kid can't hit him. like your kid is the one hitting children. Well, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. That's not allowed, but I've grown enough thick skin. And I think we do. I think our experiences in life bring us to a point where we do have to, like, it's hard. I get it's hard though. Like my daughter and my mom, they're both empaths. And so building those walls are really hard when you're an empath and you take on everybody else. I always say, you take on everybody else's problem. I always say, like, my daughter loves her wounded birds, and she wants to save everybody. And I would say I was that to an extent. And now I'm just like, if I'm going to get taken advantage of, then I'm sorry, I'm not helping you. I don't know. You just get to, you burn me once, whatever, burn me twice. But, and I think my daughter now is starting to learn, and she's going to continue to learn, as we all do, that you can only save so many and you can only help so many. And at some point you have to stop and protect yourself and just work on keeping you safe and keep saving you, but yeah, so the social media thing is new to me. I think I like my Facebook author page more right now because I'm just putting out content that is meaningful to me, where the TikTok, I don't know why I keep saying the TikTok, but
I love it.
I don't, the TikTok, where that's just something that's new and I have to get comfortable with the video aspect of it. The video is weird.
Yeah. And it's trying to figure out what it is people really want from you. Like, what do they even want to see? I know what I like to watch, when I'm sitting there mindlessly scrolling or whatever, but do I even have that to offer? Probably not. Like, I'm not that funny. I'm not that, quick, witted to put it on video. And there are just some things that I'm not going to video. Like, I'm just not going to have my phone to catch that, because I probably don't want people to see it. But, I don't know. I have found that one of the things that got the most engagement was when I was a character from one of my books and I presented as her. I was the character, and we talked about what was happening in the book through her eyes and that kind of thing. And so that was different. And so, you can get creative with it. You don't even have to be yourself, I guess, but that's so fleeting. I have no idea what's next. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, my daughter, I had her do it one for me, and she got like 1,684 views, likes, whatever it was. And I was like, what the heck? And all she did was, like, she was pretending, or she was reading her book, as she calls it, her book. And she had some random song. And then she was saying the lyrics of the song, like they were from the book or whatever. And I'm like, what did you do? I think the most I've ever gotten is like 300 or something. But I'm like, I don't even care. I'm just putting it out there. Whatever. People see it, they see it. If they don't, again, just put it out in the universe. If it speaks to you, it does. But I wasn't a TikTok person before anyways. Like, I always did Facebook and Instagram, and that was enough for me. So this is a whole area. That's why I'm like, the marketing thing. and I had to get over, here's the funny thing. So when I first published, I was like, putting the books out, and then I'd see someone, I was like, oh yeah, they're for sale, blah, blah. I'm like, you know what, here you go. It's just like the kids' book. I was running into like my students or whatever, and I was like, Mrs. Halliburton book, here, take it. I'm like, you have it. And I'm like, and then I'm like, okay, well, this is not gonna do anything for my budget. Yeah.
Right.
And like, I just want
Not
to
cost
share.
effective.
I know, not cost effective. I'm like, I did pay for that book myself, you know.
Merry Christmas
I
to all
know.
of you.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'm learning.
I get it. No, I'm the same way. Like Rob is always going, hey, you probably need to up that price a little because you're making like 50 cents. Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
I got my first Ingram Spark royalty. It was like $1.84. I was like, yay me.
I feel that. Oh my gosh. Oh, okay, Wendy, tell
Yeah.
the listeners how they can connect with you and your work.
So my books are for sale. So my books are for sale on my website. You can go to my website, www.wendyhallerauthor.com. I put poems that I'm working on or poems that I've written on there. I have a section for that. My Monday haikus are on there. I do a blog for what's speaking to me. And this week is going to be Little Fish, Big Pond. I am going to do something, and you've inspired some things that are going in
Yay.
the back right now, because I'm really feeling that this week. And that's what inspires my blogs. So, and I do have the shop. My shop has my books on it. I'm also doing gift sets for the holidays with the Maggie Malone book with a magnet and a little stuffed animal. And then I make aromatherapy bracelets and essential oil blends. So I'm doing, this one's Happy Thoughts. And so I'm doing bracelets and blends with my poetry book. I just kind of thought that went well together, like the bracelet poetry, and then Maggie's book with a magnet and a little stuffed animal. So I have those gift sets there, but I'm also on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Bookshop and all the places online. And then I'm on Facebook, Wendy Haller author, and on Instagram. I think that's
Awesome. And maybe one of these days we'll get you on TikTok.
Oh, I am on TikTok. Oh, I'm sorry. I am on TikTok. Wendy Haller author. I'm new though. I think I have like 5 things posted, and I'm new.
That's
So
okay. There's time. There's plenty
yeah,
of time.
exactly. I'm learning. I'm learning the TikTok, Jennifer. I'm learning the TikTok.
I love it. I say that all the time, the TikTok, because it drives my kid crazy. She's like, it's just TikTok. And I'm like, no, it's the TikTok. I'm on the TikTok right now. I do it too.
And it's just something fun about like those little things that you can do that annoy them, that give you a little bit of like tongue-in-cheek humor. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yes. We use Gen Z slang wrong all the time on purpose.
Yes.
Love it.
Well, that's my daughter will say slay, or what does she say? Slay. Oh yeah, she goes, that's so slay. And I'm like, sway. She's like, you're so dumb. I'm like, I know. Right. Yes, we're sway. I'm like, slay. What? Where did they come up? But of course we had them,
Well, yeah. I mean, like, as she'll say slay, I'll be like 3 steps in a Z.
Yeah,
Like,
right,
what?
right. Yes. Talk to the hand,
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. All right, are you ready for your big question? You've had all this time to think about it. So
okay,
here it is.
Yeah.
What is the one piece of advice or encouragement you want listeners to walk away with if they hear nothing else today?
I think what I've learned through my course of, this is now my 3rd career, kind of, is trust the process and embrace the journey. My husband he still says, he's said to me since the day we met, it all works out in the end. And there was a time I would be so manic, I'd be like, you don't know that. And then it all work out. And I'd be like, oh, he's right.
Oh.
Gosh darn it, he's right. But you just have to trust the process, because you never know where the journey's going to lead you, but it's going to lead you to where you're meant to be. It really is. Even though we don't know it, it will lead you. And there may be highs and there may be lows and there may be heartbreaks or body aches in my case, but it's a journey. It's a journey. So
yes, it is a journey.
It really is. And so I feel like it's 2-part, where it's like trusting the journey is that, like, And trusting the process, there's that like, is this going to work out? Is this going to work out? But when you embrace it, it's like almost like get on that surfboard and just enjoy the ride. And we're just going to embrace it, So yeah, you go out there, y'all, and you embrace your journey.
I like it. And I'm going to tack onto that and say, in those low moments and even in the high moments, don't forget to learn something while you're there.
Oh, yeah.
And take it with you, because so often we get so stuck in those low moments in the journey. We're just like, can't do this anymore. It's like, no, look around you and see what you can learn from it so that next time you're in a low spot, you can be like, oh yeah, remember last time?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We are so much stronger than our minds let us think we are.
Yes.
And we really can, like, we've already, if you look back at your life, you have already overcome so much to become the person that you are right now. And I always think about the people that I've met in my life, whether good or bad, have helped me to become the person I am today. And I can say I like this person. So thank you. So it's those high and low moments that you learn and you take it with you, and just, yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
I think together we came up with a pretty good point. But I love that. Yes, embrace the journey, because one, that's what you got. That's all you got. So either get on board or you're going to miss out on a lot.
One beautiful life. Yeah.
Embrace it. Exactly.
And absolutely. And there's oh gosh, I want to say it was Eckhart Tolle, but I could be wrong. But I think it was him, but I could be wrong. That we are all spiritual beings living a human experience. So live your experience. And I'm like, I like that. Just live your experience. Yeah. So many ways to say it, but yes, embrace the journey. Embrace it.
I love it. Wendy, like, if anybody leaves here going, I got nothing out of that, that's on them, because today this was amazing. Like, this was so good. Thank you.
So good. This was so fun. Thank you so much for letting me be here. This was great. I enjoyed our conversation so much.